Hey guys, I just got done watching season 2 of Digimon. I watched the last episode, the 50th episode, like 3 minutes ago. And it's really, really good. It's like a masterpiece. It's fantastic. It's hard to describe just how good it is. And it talks about very complicated things, which is going to make reviewing it hard, because I'm not very good at talking about stuff like that. I guess I'll also review the first season 2 and season 1. I guess I'll review them both in this one. They're both excellent, and I went into them thinking, when I started watching them, I was thinking, it'll be alright. I was just a kid. There's no way it holds up. They're pretty much masterpieces. I can't think of any real flaws in the shows. I really should have wrote a script, because this is... I'll just say whatever comes out the top of my head. So I guess I'll give you a story first, and then I'll get into the review. So I did try to record footage of some episodes, and it immediately got blocked, which is interesting. Toei seems to have a pretty tight control when it comes to who can show Digimon, which is interesting. This show is like 20 years old. I think 2000, 2001, around there. It's pretty dated, and they're still protecting it. I guess that makes sense, because these children, their story is over, but the Digimon themselves appear in a lot of games and media, so I think that's kind of why they're protecting it. And also, it's just really good, so I can kind of see why they're protecting it. And if you're wondering if Digimon is still a thing, they just announced they're gonna make like 3 more video games. And video games, I'm pretty sure, cost more than a TV show. So they're doing pretty well. And yeah, I guess I'll get into it. And I guess this will be spoilers, because this is a 20-year-old show, and it's the best. I can't talk about the best things in the show without spoiling it. It's not the action scenes. It's not, them hanging out. I said in the first season, the best part was just them hanging out. And season 2, when I was a kid, I hated season 2. And I think that's because I didn't understand the messages that they're trying to tell you. Now, this show isn't really subtle. It just rams the messages down your throat. But all the messages are really good. There's no, I will say, Cody, which is the character on the far right, I didn't really enjoy him at all. I kind of get it. He's like that annoying kid you bring the parties that, you try to get him up to date, but he's stubborn. You try to show him all the new stuff, but he's just, you try to get him, to be cool, and he's that stubborn guy. And Yoli is the girl on the left, and Yoli is just the most annoying character ever. She really is just the most annoying character ever, but as time goes on, she gets less and less screen time, and she becomes okay. Ken, who is on the far left, is pretty much what the entire 50 episodes are about. Ken is the kid with the short hair on the far left with the smirk. And he is one of the best characters I've seen in a long time. And whoever voiced him absolutely nailed it. He did a bad guy voice. He did like a child voice. And he goes through a lot of trauma. So the guy who voiced, I don't know his name, but the guy who voiced Ken just absolutely worked his ass off. He did every emotion you can think of. So Ken is just... this show is very high quality. There's very few, if any, mistakes. Whoever made this show must have been a perfectionist, because there's very, very few, if any, mistakes. I didn't really catch any, and I was looking out for them. There are a few weak episodes, but the weak episodes, nothing really happens, and you can skip them and be caught up. So yeah, even the weak episodes, you can skip them and still be caught up. So I can't even say the bad episodes are the worst thing ever. So I guess I should start with the spoilers and just review it. And I know a lot of people don't watch the videos all the way. So I'll try to sum it up the best I can to make it short. I'll give you the really short version first. Again, this is off the top of my head. I did watch 50 episodes pretty quickly, and I'm kind of burnt out. So it's not going to be a perfect... So, first off, I'll say this show is on Hulu. So if you want to watch every episode of Digimon, just go to Hulu and you can see it for yourself. So that's... Anyways, so I guess I'll review both seasons. So it's going to be weird. I'm going to start with season 2 because I just finished it. So season 2 takes place, I think, 5 years after season 1. And what makes season 2 interesting is all these characters were actually in season 2 as like babies. And they actually show you in the flashbacks that they were in season 1, but as babies. But you can pick them out of the crowd, and then they were there the whole time. So that's interesting. So they pretty quickly get their Digimon and go to the digital world. And there's this device that makes it so they can't evolve. So they have to come up with this new way of evolving called armor digivolving. Now it's explained in like episode 40 that armor digivolving is actually the primitive form of evolving, while season 1 evolving is like the futuristic version. It's kind of weird. But basically armor digivolving is they become champions. I think they're a little bit stronger than champions. Champions are like level 3. So it goes up to like level 6 or level 7. And no, I think it goes up to level 6. So champion is like level 3. So it's pretty high on the evolve list. So armor digivolving, they're a little bit stronger than champions, and they do pretty well. And the original people from season 1 relied on the futuristic evolving. So because they relied on it, they get nerfed. So they heavily nerf the original characters, but they boost the hell out of the new characters. And what makes that interesting is the fights are a lot bigger, and they have stronger enemies because, the kids got stronger. So the fights are actually a lot more dramatic. In the original, it really was a scratch here, a scratch there, and then the fight was over. In Season 2, they really put a lot more time into the fights. So, and the fights, I can't really talk about because they're hard to... It's really hard to describe a fight without showing the footage. And I can't show any footage at all. So, anyways, they figure out who's controlling these devices, and it's Ken, the guy on the left. Ken became the Emperor. Ken has a really long story, and it would take me like a while to go through all of it, but I'll try. He's a very interesting character. He's one of the best characters I've seen in a long time. And I'll try to describe his story. So without spoilers, Ken is a Digimon Emperor. He used these devices to take control of the digital world. And in the digital world, pretty much everybody is a champion or lower. So they are strong, but they're not, crazy strong. And the Digimon Emperor creates these rings, which do the exact same thing as the gears. So the rings take control of Digimon, and he basically enslaves them. They even say that, they're slaves. So he creates like this army of slave Digimon to really just wreak havoc for really no reason, just to be an asshole. And they're trying to not destroy the world, just make it worse. So he's just being an asshole, just to be an asshole. And they chase him. They can't figure out where he's at. So the kids chase him throughout the whole show, and they're constantly getting stronger. And there's more and more of them. And Ken, using his endless resources, he gets the upper hand on them a couple times. And some of the fights are really interesting. Like, they try some really creative stuff. But I'll try to keep it short. So eventually, they pretty much beat the Digimon Emperor by talking to him. They do. So Ken didn't really have a Digimon to evolve. That bug down there is his, but he never interacted with it. So he didn't have anybody to protect him like the kids do. And then you find out that this is kind of a spoiler, but in his ship, it's powered by darkness, and the darkness has control over Ken. And they kind of talk him into, they tell him that, hey, slavery is bad, beating people up is bad, everybody, the stuff you're doing is bad. So they kind of talk him out of it, and he goes home and he really just has this crisis of character. And the crisis of character episode is absolutely fantastic. It's very emotional. It's actually pretty hard to watch. They say the source of his trauma was the death of his brother that he thinks he was involved in. Before his brother died, he wished he was alone. And because he made that wish, he thinks the reason his brother is dead is, because of Ken. And then he gets an email saying, hey, there's a digital world. You should go try it out. And Ken becomes evil and stuff. And becomes the Emperor. And does all this bad stuff. And then later, you find out that the person sending the emails was a Digimon. A Digimon was controlling Ken. And she takes the devices that were nerfing everybody and turns them into very powerful Digimon. So they're Digimon and they nerf people. So they're pretty hard to fight. And then after a while they end up fighting her. And they win. But right before they beat her, another one shows up. Who's also my favorite character of pretty much all time. Mummymon. Mummymon and Ken are like my two new favorite characters of all time. They're just amazing. And I couldn't really find pictures of them. It was actually pretty hard to find pictures of season 2. And I'll change that picture out. I'll change the picture out real quick. I couldn't find a lot of pictures. So here's another picture of the show. Digimon is awesome. I really enjoyed him. So I wanted to make this video before I watch season 3. I think I will watch like 2 episodes of it. So Mummymon and Kennymon show up, and they're like, "Hey, we're the actual bad guys, not Ken." And then they start doing evil stuff, and the Kennymon episodes were not great, honestly. She's a good character, but her by herself is not very fun to watch. Mummymon is very fun to watch, so I think when Mummymon shows up, the show gets a lot better. And there are a few bad Ken episodes. There's only like 2. Ken is a great character. Ken is great. He's one of the best characters I've seen in a while. So Mummymon shows up and they're like, "Hey, we're the big bad guys." And then they use the devices to create a super powerful Digimon. And this Digimon was so powerful that it grew independence and it just kind of did its own thing. And because it was brand new, it just kind of turned feral. It attacked everything. But after a while, it started to grow like sentience, and it started to grow smarter, and eventually became a friend of everyone. After beating, he beat a lot of people up, and then he became a friend of everyone, and realized beating people up it was kind of pointless, So there is a lot going on in this show, and it gets pretty complicated. And this is like episode 30 out of 50. The show gets really complicated when Okinawa shows up. Okinawa is like the main bad guy of the show. And what's adorable is, this is a spoiler, but you find out on like episode 48 that his big evil plan was to go to the digital world and just hang out there. That's the whole plan. The reason he made everybody evil was to absorb their innocence, I guess. And he used that innocence to pretend he's a kid, because I guess only kids can go there, from what I can tell. And he used that fake innocence to get into the digital world, and his plan was just to hang out, which is pretty weird if you think about it. He causes all this misery and enslavement, and his big plan was to just hang out with everybody and just, like walk around. But it was pretty cute. You find out Okinawa, who's like 30 years old, knew about the digital world. So he knew about the digital world years before the show started. So that was pretty interesting. So that's like a basic rundown of the story, but that's not any of the messages. The story honestly didn't really matter. The story is not really what the show is about. I think the show is really about trauma and hopes and dreams and all that good stuff. A good chunk of the show is just pure childhood trauma. Divorce, dead siblings, having too many brothers and sisters and not getting any attention from your parents. Having a dead dad. Just, this show is pretty much all trauma. Wishing your brother was dead and then he dies. Just pure, trauma. And the show's, the quote that I'm thinking about now is, "You can't change the past, you can only change your future." Which is a quote, anyways, it's hard, I should have wrote a script, but anyways, you can't change your past, you can only change your future. Which is what they use to fix a lot of the trauma going on. And this show does trauma very well. The writing is amazing. There's a few, like I said, the characters are annoying, but I feel like the writing is so good that they did that on purpose. They made annoying characters, 'cause that's just, you gotta have people with mistakes. You can't have perfect characters. And what's interesting about the show is I fully expected it to be worse than season 1. And after finishing it, I think it's actually slightly better than season 1. Davis, you see there in that picture, the human on the left. Davis is just what Digimon is all about. He's just a guy with no flaws trying to heal the people of trauma. He basically just goes around to each kid and fixes their trauma. Which, the amount of balls that takes to go up to strangers and just heal their years of trauma is just great. It's you don't see that in a lot of shows. I was seeing advertisements for TV shows that focuses on one bad thing or two bad things. This show tackles every bad thing you can think of in 50 episodes in one season. So this show is just absolutely, they nailed it, out of the park. This show is a masterpiece by all means. There is some flaws in there, but I guess that's the point. I guess that's the point of the show. You have to have flaws. Even in Warhammer, who I praise all the time, even Warhammer is like, hey, you have to have flaws. Even the soldiers who provide, they try to be perfect. When they become perfect, that's when their life starts to go downhill. And that's kind of the point of the show, that you need to have flaws. You gotta have flaws somewhere. And that's what makes art more interesting to me. After watching this show, it makes me want to look at bad art instead of good art, because bad art, I feel like that's more emotional than good art, if that makes sense. I'm kind of just going off a tangent. But yeah, I recommend Season 2, really good. And I guess I'll review Season 1. Season 1 and Season 2 are almost the same. They have almost the same story. And... Well, no. Season 2 talks about trauma a lot, while Season 1 is just pure darkness, which is a bit different. They both deal with darkness, but Season 1 is just pure darkness. Now, Season 1, after watching it, I really think it's a metaphor for like the boogeyman in your closet. These kids fight this devil that it chases them. It really does chase them and tries to kill them. And these Digimon protect them, right? So I think the entire show is a metaphor for like a boogeyman in your closet. These kids are scared of the stuff underneath their bed, and I think that's what the show is trying to represent. It's not a easy show to watch. It's very high quality, but this show really does tackle darkness in every form. So, maybe not every form, but it's a few. So yeah, it's just, I don't know. I can talk about it on and on and on. It doesn't feel like a commercial. Like when I watch Pokemon, that show feels like a commercial. This show, every character, even the smallest ones, has a very long branching story. The smallest characters have like a very long branching story, and they interact with everyone. While Pokemon really does feel like a commercial. And as much as I love Transformers sometimes feels like a commercial. This show, I don't get that at all. I know they did make toys and stuff, but those toys are pretty high quality, and like they didn't break. They were meant to last long. I broke mine because I guess I'm that good. I guess I did play with it like every day. That one Digimon toy I got, I played with it like every day until I broke it. But yeah, I can talk about the show forever, so I think I'll leave it there. If you haven't watched it, you should watch it. And it's just fantastic. I had to watch it with commercials, and that sucked. But it did. I kind of like watching it with commercials because you can see. It was this show came back. This show came out in 2000, and you can see that they knew it would have commercials in it, and you can see like the editing. I don't know if it makes sense. I don't know if any of this makes sense, but you can see that they tended certain parts of the end because they knew a commercial was coming up. Like they put certain breaks. Like you don't see a commercial like mid-sentence. Like they don't go, "Hey, it's commercial." You see intended commercial breaks. So I did watch this commercials, and it sucked, but you get that genuine feel. It was intended to have commercials, right? So I get that feel. And back then, in 2000, I think the commercials were like 3 minutes long or 2 minutes long, something like that. And on Hulu, they're like a minute and a half or a minute. So the commercials are a lot shorter than the real ones. They're not entertaining though. The 2000 commercials were a lot more entertaining. Anyways, that's my long rant. I can go on and on about Season 1 and Season 2. They're just absolutely fantastic. If I want to talk about the best parts of the show, I would have to spoil the ever-living daylights of it. So I think I'll just leave it there. I really enjoyed the finale. The finale was, very emotional. Almost every episode in Digimon is emotional, so I really enjoy that. But yeah, it's just a damn good show. And I'll just leave it there. And I know I'm going to get a bunch of comments saying, this show sucks, or Pokemon's better. So I'll have to get ready for that. Yeah, I just really enjoyed it. Every character just interacts with each other, and it's just a very, very high quality show. And something I find interesting is the guy who did pretty much every character in Cowboy Bebop. A lot of people like Cowboy Bebop, and a lot of their voices show up here in the show. So if you like Cowboy Bebop, you might actually like this show too, because a lot of their voices just pop up in the show. So if you like Cowboy Bebop, maybe watch Digimon. Who knows? It's hard for me to review this show because it's just so complicated and I'm kind of burnt out. And it's just amazing. But yeah, I can just talk about the show forever. I think that's gonna be it. Thanks for watching. I know none of you made it this far, but thanks for watching.